everybody. Welcome to Hot Boy in the Grass podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Frank and Marty. I don't know what to say after that. Hi, Marty. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Frank?
I'm all right. This episode's coming a little late because we had some things happen at work outside of the podcast on Friday, and so we didn't want to record. But we're doing that today. Today's episode is about The Scorpion King, one of the greatest movies of all time. All right, Scorpion King is a movie that came out in the early 2000s, about 2002. Directed by Chuck Russell. Never heard of him before. I think this is the only thing I can say he directed off the top of my head. It stars Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who we all know is a traitor and hates Henry Cavill. But boy, does he make good movies, like Scorpion King specifically. I think that's his greatest movie of all time.
This was his first movie, wasn't it?
Depending on how you define first movie. So I think The Mummy Returns came out first, and he was in The Mummy Returns. But it was that weird CG thing where it was just his face. So I wouldn't really count that. I would say this is his first movie, personally.
So do you think this Chuck Russell guy saw The Mummy and saw The Rock in this big CGI scorpion thing and was like, hey, I got an idea. And he just ran with it?
I think they already had the idea for the movie, and that's why they shoehorned The Scorpion King into The Mummy 2 and put Dwayne's face on it, because they already knew they were going to make a movie with Dwayne. But I don't know for sure.
When did Mummy Returns come out?
That's a good question. The Mummy Returns. It came out in 2001, so it came out a year before. So they were probably already filming The Scorpion King when it came out. But great movie. It had a decent budget of $60 million and then a box office of $180 million. So it made its money back. You know, it profited. It maybe wasn't like crazy, but it wasn't a failure either. Maybe like writing wise, it was not great, but execution, it was pretty fun. I definitely enjoy watching that movie.
Yeah, it was a good time to watch. It was in that era of movies where like you could get away with cheesy stuff.
Oh yeah. I remember a movie that I owned as a kid, a Universal movie. In the commercials that played before the movie on the VHS tape, it was How the Grinch Stole Christmas with Jim Carrey and The Scorpion King.
Both classic childhood movies.
Yeah, the movie that I was on the VHS tape was Jurassic Park 3.
Yeah.
Which is not how we're connecting Scorpion King to Jurassic Park.
That's just a bonus.
Actually, that might have been how I did it, because I can't remember how I connected it to Jurassic Park 3, or to Jurassic Park. We're going to go that's how it's connected. It's on the VHS tape. There you go, everybody. So I didn't actually watch The Scorpion King until I was like a grown-up. I just remember seeing the trailer on the Jurassic Park VHS tape every time I watched it and thinking, man, that movie looks so cool.
I'm pretty sure I saw The Scorpion King in theaters with my sister when I was, I don't know, 8 years old, 9 years old.
That would have been fun to see in theaters.
Yeah, I was a big WWE fan, or, wrestling fan in general. So when I saw The Rock was going to be in a movie, I was like, gotta check this out.
Yeah. So as we talked about earlier, this is in the Mummy universe. It takes place about 5,000 years ago in Gomorrah, of all places, which is interesting. Probably not going to last very long after this movie. But, yeah, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is the Scorpion King, and then goes on to become a bad guy in The Mummy 2, where he has the giant body of a scorpion. So let's get into the actual movie itself. I took some notes here when I was watching it. The opening music was pretty cool. The whole opening scene was just really it set the tone for how over-the-top ridiculous this movie is going to be. Like, whenever he jumps in and he shoots his bow, his, obnoxiously large bow that's apparently really hard to pull back, and he hits that guy, and he flies through the roof of the building, 50 feet.
And then the chandelier, when it drops over the bad guy and it doesn't kill him. But
Yeah.
then he takes one step over
He's
it.
like, you missed me.
And then he, takes the rope, hangs it around another dude, and drops that guy as a counterweight in the chandelier.
Yeah.
It's antlers, by the way, like bones and pointy things that ram straight into the dude's crotch.
Yeah, and then it like lights him on fire against the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole opening scene was so funny.
It's cheesy, it's over the top, but it's 2002 and it's awesome.
But even before that, the weapon that guy that was killed by the chandelier was holding was like a club that had like moose antlers that folded out of it to turn it into an axe.
Yeah.
It looked like something out of like a 90s sitcom, like, what are those called? Like a dream sequence where somebody's like a caveman or something. Like, just imagine if in Home Improvement, Tim Allen's character falls asleep and he dreams he's a caveman and he's holding this weapon. Like, that's where I would see that from. But this was in like a big budget movie, like action movie.
Yeah, I think it worked out just fine.
Oh yeah, I think this is like the pinnacle of campiness done well. Like, I don't think anybody goes into the Scorpion King expecting a masterpiece in cinema. They go in there for fun. So it's definitely fun. It maintains that. I wrote here the faces the brother made after The Rock kills the bad guy. So after he kills the bad guy with the chandelier, his brother goes.
Yeah.
he makes that weird face. Oh man, if you guys are listening on the audio version, you need to Google that. It's so funny. He just gives him this face. Oh man. And then I also got here, King Guy has a funny voice. So the old man, whenever like all the tribes are talking to each other.
The free folk.
Yeah. Okay. Here, I got another good note here. Nobody in this movie looks Egyptian or Arabic or North African or anything like that. But that's where everything takes place. So Gamora is like the Middle East, I'm assuming. And then the Scorpion King is an Egyptian king in The Mummy. But everybody in the movie is either like white or, well, actually I think they're all just, or Asian. There's a couple of Asians.
Yeah, the sorceress is Asian. The Rock is obviously like Samoan and black.
Yeah, not Middle Eastern looking or Egyptian looking or North African looking.
They did have Balthazar. I mean, he's pretty African.
Yeah, but not North African.
Michael Clark Duncan.
What an actor.
Yeah.
I think one of his lines from the movie is what made me think the movie looked cool in the trailer that played before Jurassic Park 3. Somebody referred to the bad guys as Red Guards.
Like Skyrim?
Yeah, that's what I was like. What is Red Guard an actual thing?
They did wear red uniforms. Yeah,
I don't know. I just feel like with where it was supposed to be and what Red Guards are, it was like a little weird.
A little dicey.
The weird, I don't remember his name, but the guy that's basically like Da Vinci but ancient Egyptian, who's also white.
Phylos.
Yeah. So Theoden played him. Like, that's and this is during the time of the Lord of the Rings movies coming out as well.
Yeah.
And so he does Theoden, and he does this, like, ridiculous character in this super over-the-top campy movie.
Yep.
He has a pretty good filmography. I can't remember the name of that actor, but he's in some pretty weird stuff. He has a very diverse set of bad and good characters in movies. What else I got here? I like halfway through it, I started getting a little sleepy, and so I stopped taking as much. Okay, so after he meets that guy, and he's running away from the guards, and by he I mean The Rock.
When he meets, are you talking about Phylos?
Yeah, he meets. I'm gonna call him Da Vinci for the rest of the podcast probably. So he runs in there, and he finds the catapult thing.
Right.
And he's like, "Oh, this was gonna be a means of transportation, but I couldn't figure out the landing." Blah blah blah. And then The Rock like launches himself out the window, and then he lands into that harem.
Yeah.
Like Aladdin.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote down here eyebrows. Because he did.
Oh yeah, he does the people's
Rock
eyebrow. Yeah. Yeah, because all these women are touching all over him, and they're sneakily taking his weapons away from him. He doesn't notice it.
Yeah, it's. This movie is so ridiculous, but it's so fun at the same time.
It is, yeah.
Okay, here we go. Okay. So the bad guy, what did you say his name was?
Memnon.
Memnon. All right.
Memnon will stop at nothing.
Yeah, not Agamemnon. Different guy. So Memnon. He dipped his arrow in scorpion venom.
Yeah.
And it looked like it was an emperor scorpion. So not super venomous. It's like he's basically dipping his arrow in bee venom and shooting it at somebody. But then he shoots the Rock with this arrow and he gets envenomized or whatever. Envenomated. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then the sorceress, when she's like fixing him, says, "Oh, he'll always have the blood of the scorpion now." What does that even mean?
Listen. All right, it's 2002. We're gonna let that slide.
He'll always have the blood of the scorpion. How many people you think are out here in the world that have been stung by scorpions who don't like turn into?
Listen. Here's what happened, okay? So they came up with the name of the movie first, and they were like, "We got to make this work somehow."
Oh man! Well, the problem is we have to do a background movie about this character from The Mummy 2, who is a giant scorpion with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's torso and face, but he's on a giant scorpion body. How do we get him there? Oh, I know. We'll shoot him with an arrow that has just regular plain scorpion venom on it, and it'll give him the blood of a scorpion. Oh man, I love it. That's what I'm talking about with the cheesiness. Like, I don't care that it's cheesy. It doesn't make sense because it's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh man. What else? That whole sandstorm scene. At that point, right, where they're out in the desert and the sandstorm comes, the bad guys are in the cave with them, and he starts taking them out one by one. That's pretty sick.
One thing about that, right before that scene, he has the telescope, and he puts a little crystal in it, and he turns the crystal, and like each direction he turns it is like a higher magnification.
Yeah.
That was pretty sick.
Yeah, it's just such a classic early 2000s movie. I mean,
yeah.
Man, you don't get movies like this anymore. Action movies.
No.
Where they're purposely over the top and cheesy.
The song that played in the credits was Disturbed.
Yeah.
People don't do that anymore.
No. In the final battle, so Dwayne and Memnon are fighting, and the sorceress is like running, and then Memnon pushes her down, and she like falls on this table that has a perfectly cubed rock just sitting on it for some reason, and she smashes her skull into it, so it makes it seem like she's gonna die, but then she's just okay. Like nothing came from that.
Yeah.
It made me think, what's that boxing movie where the person falls over and they like hit their neck on something and kills them, and then Scary Movie did a joke about it where people just kept falling and snapping their neck. Mm-hmm. And so I thought it was going to be like that where she dies, but no, she's fine. Like, we showed that slow motion scene of her smacking her head on this perfectly placed rock that's on a table of all places, but she's okay. And then like they make it seem like she's about to jump in front of him to save him from getting hit by an arrow.
And then he turns.
But then he turns and he gets hit. And then he sticks that little skinny arrow on his gigantic bow that was also conveniently placed on the table that had the rock. Oh, wait. The rock. She fell on the rock. She fell for the rock. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Also, there was one scene where he throws the grappling hook up on the wall, right, and climbs up there. He throws one dude off the wall. And then another dude, guard, like runs at him. And he does the rock bottom on the dude.
I'm glad you know his signature moves.
Yeah, of course.
What a movie, man.
I think most wrestlers try to sneak in their, signature move when they do movies.
Yeah. Except for Triple H.
He did.
No. Name 2 movies Triple H is in.
Oh, okay.
X-Men and Blade.
Was he in X-Men?
No. But Sabretooth kind of looks like him.
Yeah.
Alright. Theoden's plan to blow up that wall at the temple or whatever, the castle.
Mm-hmm.
He stole that plan from Saruman.
From what?
Saruman. That's how they blew up the wall at Helm's Deep.
Yeah.
He just did the same thing. Like, oh, I invented gunpowder, and I immediately use it to blow up a fortification within this movie.
I thought it was funny that when he was talking about the powder, he was like, it'll be used to make roadways and move mountains, and I just hope it's never used for war. And then the first time he uses it
It's for war.
Blow up a castle.
Oh, Theoden. What a goober. Alright, so he kills Memnon, shoots him with that arrow. He falls off the thing, and then the bad army shows up, right? Or, like, the army that was bad. And the people that were helping him are at the bottom. And now they're all like, hail, King The Rock Johnson. And everybody's, like, clapping and cheering. But we all know what happens to him. He uses, like, dark magic to control these armies, to take over all this land, and he turns into a giant monster. And he, like, enslaved a bunch of people and murdered a bunch of people. So everybody's like, yeah! The Scorpion King! But he's the worst king that they've had yet. He's worse than Memnon.
Yeah, they don't know that yet.
He's just more handsome and less white. Memnon was very white.
Yeah, he was.
I was like, is Britain taking this, like, land at this point? Or when did they start invading?
I actually liked Memnon, though. I thought he was a pretty good bad guy for a 2002 movie.
Oh, yeah. I think everything was done well. I just think it was all really cheesy. I mean, obviously not, like, when I say well, for what they're going for, not in general. Like, it's never going to be...
Yeah, it wasn't going to be movie of the year or anything.
It's not like The Departed or Titanic or something like that, Yeah. But for what it is, it does a really good job at being what it is. All right. Some frank facts about the Scorpion King. The executive producer for Scorpion King. Can you guess who that was? Can you just take a wild guess?
James Cameron.
Vince McMahon.
Oh, yeah, could have seen that coming.
Yeah, exactly. Who would have guessed, right? A WWE stars in a movie executive produced by Vince McMahon. Dwayne Johnson's paycheck for this movie made the Guinness Book of World Record for the highest paycheck for a first-time movie actor. $5.5 million.
Nice.
He got $5 million for the Scorpion King. What the heck? I will never have $5 million in my entire life accumulated. This guy made it with the Scorpion King, which was his first movie. How amazing. So when The Rock does his little move where he, like, goes from laying on his back and he jumps up and he puts his feet under him, they did that just because the director wanted to see The Rock do something really physical. He's like, hey, do that. And he's like, whoa, I didn't know somebody that tall could do that. And that's the only reason why they did that. The movie was only 70 minutes after they edited it, and so they had to go back and film more, which is probably why things don't really feel together in this movie.
It's still only like 90 minutes.
Yeah, it's a pretty short movie. I Stand Alone by Godsmack is the theme song. For some reason, they...
Because it's 2002, why not?
But then that song was in the Prince of Persia video game.
Yes, it was.
So, I guess I Stand Alone by Godsmack is a very Arabic song. At least in the early 2000s, people thought it was. Oh, man. Could you imagine if the Scorpion King became Dwayne The Rock Johnson's personality in WWE instead of The Rock?
That'd be pretty sick, actually.
So instead of it being like the People's Elbow, it'd be like the Scorpion Sting. Man. Oh, as I said earlier, this movie is owned by Universal Pictures. You know what else Universal Pictures owns, Marty?
Fast and Furious.
Yes, but more importantly, Jurassic World. Bernard Hill, that's the name of the guy that played Theoden. So he was in The Ghost in the Darkness. That's the other movie I was going to say he was in earlier. You haven't seen Ghost in the Darkness?
I don't think so.
Oh, man, you gotta watch that. I thought I showed it to you. It's the one where Val Kilmer is playing an Irish engineer, but he doesn't use an Irish accent throughout the entire movie. And it's like a true story about a guy named Colonel John Patterson who hunted these two lions that killed hundreds of people while they're building, what are those things called? Railroad. They're building a railroad to end slavery in Africa.
The Above Ground Railroad.
All right, moving on. But yeah, that's a good movie. That's a good movie. You need to watch that. But yeah, Scorpion King. I'm gonna give it 6 Brendan Frasers total
I give it 7 scorpions.
out of 8 kings.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely on the watch list, people. You need to watch Scorpion King if you haven't seen it. All right, I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap up this episode with that. This one's a little more off the wall. We didn't have as much time to prepare for it because we were dealing with some stuff over the weekend. And Mr. Marty has to go pick up his kids soon from daycare. So we'll see you guys later. And next week's episode, or is it gonna be this week's episode? Later this week's episode.
On our next episode.
On the episode after this one, we're having a special for Marty's birthday.
We are?
We are. It's going to be on Forged in Fire, Marty's favorite TV show. So, we'll see you then. Goodbye. Marty, say goodbye.
Peace.
Subscribe to our channel.